This is From Both Sides, a spontaneous, free-flowing conversation featuring a dynamic team of women, providing insights into both political and civic events affecting the lives of women throughout Pennsylvania. And now, here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of From Both Sides. I'm Michelle Lipkowitz, your host. Today we're going to be discussing the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workplace and consider how that may impact creativity, innovation, problem solving, and potentially the bottom line. Joining me today as my guest co-host is the co-host from Behind the Headlines, Maura Donnelly. Maura, welcome to the show again.
Hi, Michelle.
Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
We're going to have a great guest today.
We do.
And at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce her. She is Michelle Lipkowitz. She is a partner at the law firm of Saul, Ewing, and she's the chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee of the entire firm. She has a very impressive background. She's a undergrad of Harvard University with a law degree from Georgetown. She's won many, many awards. I think one of the most impressive to me, Michelle, is that you were named in 2015 as one of the country's most influential Black lawyers. Now, this isn't the city, Maura. This isn't the state. This is the entire country, one of the most influential Black lawyers. And Michelle's practice at Saul Ewing focuses on government investigations, white-collar defense, and commercial litigation. So, Michelle, you have a very impressive background. We're excited to have you here today to talk about diversity and inclusion. So welcome to From Both Sides.
Thanks so much. I'm equally excited to be here and to speak about something I'm very passionate about, which is diversity and inclusion in the law industry.
Okay, great. Well, Michelle, why is this so important to you personally?
Personally, it's really important because I recognize, first of all, that there's a need and I have a responsibility. Unfortunately, I've been practicing almost 15 years, and over the time that I've been practicing, the statistics have not gotten any better. If you look at an overarching level of the number of partners, which is in many people's eyes the golden ring, you aspire to be a partner if you're in private practice at a law firm, the statistics hover around 5% of partners are of any kind of diverse background. That's a problem, and it continues to be a problem. And as an African American female in private practice as a partner in a law firm, I have a responsibility to help others who look like me or who can relate to me in different ways achieve their goals.
Well, it sounds like you feel pretty passionately about it. Do you have anything in your background that might have sort of led you down this path to do this?
I will say, obviously, I'm a litigator, so there is a little bit of a competitive nature and a passionate side of my personality, but it also comes from being, I think, of mixed heritage. My mom is African American and Catholic. My dad is Caucasian and Jewish, so diversity, I am. Diversity,
yeah, the poster child.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So there is that part of my personality that I think I'm a little bit more comfortable and more chameleon-like and comfortable in very many different environments because of my upbringing and my background. So I think I draw some strength and ability to connect with others from that, and recognizing just through living these 40 years the different perspectives I'm able to bring to the table, be it in a African American church in one area versus being in a synagogue with the other side of my family. So literally seeing in practice the importance of diversity and different perspectives and success. I'm very passionate about it.
Oh.
Yeah, and with your family background, it seems to me you would just have a very special perspective on it that, probably I wouldn't have. So I think that gives you kind of additional credibility when you go out and you speak to these issues. Michelle, how would you define, and how does Saul Ewing define diversity and inclusion when you're speaking? I mean, I think we generally have a sense of what that means, but for the viewers, how would you really define that so we're all clear on what we're talking about?
That's a great question. It's actually a very, very important question because I think many people think of diversity as a very narrow thing, and diversity is everything from age and generational differences to ethnicity and religions and military background and socioeconomic status and where you grew up in the country or whether you grew up outside of the country. Everybody's different perspectives and experiences are diversity. I think one way to explain it that I think was done very, very well, and I will give Dr. Aaron Reeves credit for this, is diversity is the seed. So for example, we want to plant seeds in our garden. We're going to buy some purple seeds and some orange seeds and some pink seeds, and we're going to buy them from all over the country. These are all grade A seeds. These are fantastic. We're paying top price for these certified grade A seeds, but we're getting them from all over the country, and they're all different. They're purple, pink, every other every other color. So we're going to plant them in the soil. So we have this diversity of seeds, and we plant them all in the same soil, which for our purposes, let's say it's the law firm. The law firm is the inclusion, the way we help people. So we water these seeds on schedule, and we've read all the directions, and we water the seeds, and we make sure they're getting enough sunlight, and we make sure they're getting enough water, and at times we need to protect them and we need to get them out of the sun. So we take care of them, and we watch them grow, but we're disappointed. You know, all the purple seeds did really, really, really well, but some of the orange ones, they didn't even get out of the soil. Some of the yellow ones, they did okay, but they look like there may be some issues with them. We don't understand. We treated them all the same. Why are we not seeing success? We bought all these great A seeds. Why aren't they all the same height and flourishing? Well, that's the law firm context, is the soil. It's how we integrate people based on their different experiences and backgrounds and skill sets, et cetera. How we set people up for success, that's the inclusion part.
So you don't just go out looking for a diverse workforce. You cultivate it and find out what they need to be successful, instead of just sort of, you know, we have diversity. Let's go for it. Yeah. Good luck.
Precisely.
Yes.
We recognize at Saul Ewing that as a law firm, we have a responsibility. Just like we focus on, especially our younger associates in their early years, and as people progress, we recognize that your needs when you're a first-year lawyer versus when you're a fifth-year lawyer versus when you're an eighth-year lawyer versus when you're a junior partner, those needs are very different. We take the same approach to diversity and recognize not everybody is going to succeed with the same watering, the same sunlight. So we take a very deep dive into helping set people up for success. Because one of the big challenges we have in terms of the statistics, the law school admittance rates are about equal. You have diverse lawyers graduating. What you're not seeing is that they're succeeding in making it to partner. So what we need to focus on is retention. Generally speaking, most law firms do a pretty good job of hiring. It's the retention. It's the watering of the seeds. It's making sure that people are getting equal opportunities and that we are focusing on business development and skill development at the same time for people in the way that they need to have that attention.
So what specifically do you do to cultivate then for, say, various ethnic groups or different folks on your staff? What do you actually do? So if viewers are listening and they have other businesses, what are the kinds of things that Saul Ewing does to cultivate different employees?
I have so many different things to say about that. First of all, one of the things that's been proven through the years that is very, very helpful is to have what we refer to as affinity groups. So we have, for example, a minority lawyers affinity group. We have an LGBT lawyers affinity group. We have a flex time lawyers affinity group. We have, I know you've met with Terry Courier, has appeared before your show. She chairs our Women's Development Initiative, which in the early days was an affinity group at the firm. It's now grown its own legs, and it's flourishing as a separate group, but a very connected group with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So we have affinity groups where people can have a repository of people where they will more likely connect on a deeper level with and maybe be more comfortable discussing any concerns that they have with somebody that they can relate to maybe in a different way. So we set those opportunities up. And so you have groups of people where you can address any issues. If you're having issues maybe with not getting a lot of work that you like to do, for example, or you aspire to take X many depositions, somebody that maybe you connect with on a different level that you're more comfortable. So we try to tee up those relationships. Similarly, we have what we call ombudspersons for diversity. So we have people at multiple different levels within the firm, from partners to associates to office managers to staff people, where people can come to if they see something. It doesn't even necessarily have to affect them, but if it's something that relates to diversity or inclusion across the firm, that they can come to one of these ombudspersons who is trained to help, work through issues and address issues. So we address it that way as well. We also do very intensive business development. We support a lot of external organizations that are focused on the development and retention of minority lawyers, from charting your own course, which is done by Wharton Bellamy, where we send people, and I speak at that oftentimes, through Corporate Counsel Women of Color, which is the largest network of African American female attorneys, both in private practice as well as in corporations. We do a lot of training with them. They have a full day conference for law firm associates every year. Last year was in New York, so we participate in that both from a sponsorship level, as well as I present and serve as a mentor for many of the associates, and we send associates to that. So we do both internal kind of guerrilla mentoring as well as external support of external organizations that can help us create a more inclusive environment, make sure that our associates feel very supported throughout their career, because you can't always address everything internally.
Well, it sounds like you've spent a lot of time working on the actual culture that your attorneys are working in. What is a day in the life of Michelle like? What do you do as the head of this practice within your law firm?
That's a really interesting question. I wish, one of the things that I love the most about my job is the fact that there is no normal day in my life, and I love the dynamic nature because I am a full-time litigator. I still litigate full-time and represent my clients across the country. So this is just a part of my job that I get to be very passionate about because it gets to be very personal. For example, right now, and one of the things I did want to mention, one of the things we're kind of in the hot time for is we have an annual all-attorney diversity and inclusion retreat every year. We rotate between Baltimore and Philly because that's where the largest populations of our lawyers live. This year we will be in Baltimore and we're focusing on unconscious bias. Last year we were in Philadelphia. So we have an all-attorney diversity and inclusion retreat. It ends up being a little bit over of a half-day program, and all of our attorneys are invited to that, and we always have, for the past number of years at least, in excess of 100 lawyers attending that. So we have a very dedicated population of lawyers within our firm who are focused on helping the firm and helping promote attorneys of color, helping make sure that we are creating an inclusive environment, helping make sure that we are promoting also just diverse attorneys across the board. So we have, it's kind of everybody's issue. We're all in on that. We're stronger together when we're all recognizing that we all have a responsibility within the firm to work on diversity and inclusion. So that's one of the things we're focused on right now, is planning our all-attorney diversity and inclusion retreat, as well as upcoming programming that we have. A lot of mentoring. A lot of mentoring. We have formal mentoring programs where all associates have mentors within the firm, but then we also have more informal mentoring programs as well.
Michelle, we've got about a minute left before we take a break. Tell me, why is this so important to Saul Ewing? How does it benefit Saul Ewing, or benefit any business, to have this kind of focus?
And that's a great point. It's not just about the legal industry. This is replete across the business world, generally speaking. I think one of the reasons that we are so passionate about it at Saul Ewing is that in addition to the moral and ethical responsibilities that we have, it really is good business. The statistics show that firms with more diversity have higher profits per partner. If you have a team of jurors who are more diverse, they deliberate better and they have stronger results than non-diverse juries. And in the legal industry, those type of arguments are very persuasive because that's what the statistics show. I have to say, across the business world, if you own a grocery store and you're only buying what you like and what you've eaten growing up,
what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I was like, some people would be fine with that. You have to, if you're going to succeed and you're going to grow, let's say the population around you is growing more and more diverse, which is what we're experiencing across the United States. If you're only buying the bacon and eggs that you grew up eating and you're at the exclusion of the more diverse environment that's growing around you, you're going to have a challenge of succeeding. So that's, from a business perspective, it's just good business, and our clients are demanding it because they recognize that.
All right, we're going to take a break right now and hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
From Both Sides is a production of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy and is made possible by the support of the Pennsylvania Center for Women and Politics at Chatham University, a nonpartisan center devoted to fostering women's public leadership through education, empowerment, and action. The first to focus on women's political involvement in Pennsylvania, the center integrates disciplinary knowledge, civic education, and capacity building, while examining the intersection of women and public policy. From Both Sides is also supported as a public service by Saul Ewing, LLP, a law firm with a 100-year tradition of serving the needs of business, government, education, healthcare, technology, and manufacturing in our region. And by the University Center for International Studies, the engine for extending the global reach of the University of Pittsburgh and its students.
Hello and welcome back to From Both Sides. Our guest today is Michelle Lipkowitz, a partner in the law firm of Saul Ewing. Michelle, why don't we start our second segment by having you talk a little bit about the Saul Ewing Law Firm?
Absolutely. We are a 270 lawyer law firm, full service law firm. We represent our clients in every aspect, from family businesses, formation of their businesses, to dissolution of their businesses, to any disputes they may have. I personally am a litigator, so I represent my clients in court throughout the country, as well as in government investigations and the like. We have offices ranging from as far north as Boston, as far south as the DC area, and as far west as Pittsburgh. In terms of Pennsylvania, we have offices in Philadelphia, downtown Philadelphia, as well as Chesterbrook, Harrisburg, and west in Pittsburgh.
Great. Oh, that's great. Well, I want to go back to talking a little bit about diversity, and I have a question that I need to ask. You know, I was fortunate in my career so far to have been the first woman at a couple of things, which is always a really great thing, and Michelle can say the same. I was especially happy with that because I felt like I deserved it. I felt like I was competent and that I was working very hard to get where I was. Where does competency and hard work play into your diversity and inclusion program?
I'm so glad you asked that question. That is a baseline, and I feel the same passion, and I can relate to the passion that you just outlined. And that's where the passion, the drive comes from, is when you have the skill set and you can get to that level, you have a responsibility to reach back to those who have the competence and have the drive and the passion and the grit to get through the challenges and to succeed. So the competence is a baseline.
You're not just looking for diversity when you're hiring. You're looking for that level of competence as well.
Absolutely.
I think it's an important point to make, that it's not just, you know, the color of your skin. It really is far more important than that, that you want to see the skill sets and the education and hard work.
Absolutely. That is absolutely a baseline. There are no exceptions made for that. That is a baseline. Especially if you're going to be mentoring people or sponsoring people, which is using your weight within the organization, whatever the organization may be. It may be a board that you're on for somebody else's benefit. You need to have that competence before I can step in and kind of sing your praises or support you in rooms that you're not in yet.
Great.
Michelle, you mentioned a little earlier that how the population is changing in this country. I'd like to just go back to that for a minute for the viewers, because I'm not sure that everybody realizes, according to census data, we are 2015. By 2050, there will be no majority ethnic group in this country, which I think is an amazing statistic. Yeah. So the country that maybe we grew up in is changing in a lot of different ways. And businesses, of course, have to be more responsive to their clientele. So while Saul Ewing is a model of this program, how do you think that relates to other businesses? Just from your perspective, how do you think other businesses need to address this issue and be ready for the future?
And I think you bring up a fabulous point, and I think one of the ways I've seen it in print is that it really will be a minority majority. And that's who is going to be, that's the decision makers, that's who's spending money. If you're a retailer and we represent the retailer, that's where all the money is coming from. That's who is supporting those businesses. And I think a lot of the drive, and that empowers us at Saul Ewing to do the diversity and inclusion initiatives that we do participate in, is because our clients recognize where the country is going, where the population is going. Therefore, it is vital to the continuity of their businesses that we address it now. If you're not teeing it up and addressing these issues now, you're going to be way too far behind the ball to fix it as we move forward. So our clients are demanding it because they recognize that that is where the world is going. And in order for them to succeed professionally, they have to adjust, and so do we.
So, you are very successful in what you're doing. Are there other law firms doing this? I know you talk a lot, but are there a lot of law firms now adopting diversity and inclusion practices?
Absolutely. I think there's a whole spectrum of how much people do, but I have many friends at all of these law firms who are very passionate about diversity and inclusion, and I will say we can't do it in isolation. We all work together to mentor each other, to sponsor each other, to make sure that we are referring businesses, back and forth. So we absolutely have various groups within our various cities within our footprint that we have. For example, I'm in Baltimore. We have a Baltimore Diverse Partners Network, and we work together on programming for Baltimore area associates, for example, and Baltimore area partners. So we absolutely work together. And a lot of these organizations like MCCA, the Minority Corporate Counsel Association, or LCLD, the Legal Council, Leadership Council on Legal Diversity, they're all very focused on kind of co-mentoring and co-sponsorship. We cannot do it in isolation.
If we could talk for a minute about diversity from the perspective of male-female, how does your area look in terms of female lawyers, in terms of percentages?
Yeah, I'd say both in the legal industry as well as a lot of my friends, we had this conversation within the financial services industry. You'll have, for example, in law school, it's over 50% of law school students are females, but as you progress, the numbers dwindle significantly. So unfortunately, I think it's exactly what you're hinting at. It's exactly what you would expect, that the numbers are not as bad as they are for diverse lawyers. It's not 5%, but it's significantly less than 50% across the board.
Well, and then when you start talking about the partner track, it starts even dropping further. And there are a whole lot of reasons why that's the case, I'm sure.
Precisely.
But I think that there are a lot more can be done to put women on the partner track and give them an equity share of the organization.
Absolutely, and that's the stuff that we are very focused on, because I am a wife and I have 2 small children, and I'm still a partner at my law firm. So that's
where I was going.
Right, so that's exactly
There's
why.
a lot of reasons.
There are a lot of reasons, and then you feel an additional responsibility when you've been through that to help those behind you to look back and pull forward.
But I think it's similar in other professions. I was in education, a school superintendent, and when you look at the numbers of women that are teachers, and then you compare the number of women who've moved up to the superintendency, it's dismal. It's probably about the same. Well, it's maybe a little bit higher. In Pennsylvania at one time, it was about 18 to 20% of women were superintendents, whereas probably we were somewhere at 75 to 80% of the teachers are women. Yeah. So I think that a lot of professions can learn from this model that Saul Ewing is putting forward, but I just don't see some other industries like education doing this kind of reaching out to these groups to cultivate them the way that you seem to be
creating
doing.
the culture like they're doing.
Absolutely.
I think one of the biggest benefits we have is we do not have an environment where people are afraid to have the conversation. People recognize that there is a problem, and so many people are afraid of being offensive that they're afraid to have the conversation. Once you create an environment where you can have the conversation, and we have a very involved, aggressively involved leadership and management team at our firm about diversity and inclusion issues. When you can have those conversations, you can address the issues, which a lot of them are focused on unconscious bias. It's not that you're prejudiced against others, it's that you have an affinity for people that you have something in common with. It could be where you went to high school, it could be where you grew up, it could be, I don't know, karate, it could be anything, but you have an affinity for certain people. We're not fighting that, saying that you're prejudiced against somebody. We're saying that you have an affinity for others. So what we need to do is focus on checking that unconscious bias. So one of the ways that you can do that we've been practicing is, for example, before an interview, don't let somebody review the resume, because when you review the resume, you all of a sudden, you find something that you have in common. We went to the same high school, and then you naturally have an affinity for that person versus the next person coming in where you don't have that same affinity. So psychologically, you start to kind of already tee yourself up for liking the first person, then the second person.
Before you've even met them.
Precisely. So we're trying to find different creative ways to kind of break those unconscious biases so that we can help people create a more equal footing, so that we can help people succeed.
Well, one of the issues Michelle mentioned at the very beginning was how this helps the bottom line. And I think you've touched on it a little bit, but law firms are businesses, and they want to profit, and everyone wants to be successful. How do you think that the diversity and inclusion helps the bottom line? Not just of your law firm, but all law firms, businesses.
Absolutely. The first thing is we have many clients that are very sophisticated these days. They are tracking internally the percentage of their work that is being done by diverse lawyers. There is literally software that they have that tracks. For example, if somebody billed 100 hours on a file, they can track how much of it was billed by a diverse lawyer. So many of the clients these days are extremely sophisticated. So if you have clients that are demanding diversity and demanding that you are putting diverse lawyers in positions to, leadership positions on the files, whatever the case may be, that's definitely good for business. If the client is requiring it, you better comply.
Now, are clients requiring it because they are very diverse, or what makes them buy this software?
Because they recognize the business implications. They too, more diverse teams lead to better business for them, leads to better dollars on the bottom line.
Okay.
For law firm partners, I'm a partner at the law firm. I love for us to do well. I personally and professionally do well when the firm does well. Higher profits per partner are tied to more diverse law firms. More diverse teams lead to higher profits per partner. It's the same in the business world.
And it would seem to me that if you're creating this culture for people that sounds so kind of welcoming, and it seems to me like you're going to be better off in terms of retention.
Absolutely.
And people lose or save money on retention.
Yeah.
Retaining people.
That's a savings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah,
absolutely
definitely
saving.
savings.
It's always cheaper to make somebody who you already have in-house happy and to make them feel loved and invest in their development than to go through the whole hiring process, which is very, very, very expensive. Same thing for the clients who want their diverse teams. They often want teams that they've already been working with, and they just want you to dig deeper and make sure you are really intensely developing them, because that's cheaper for the client as well.
Michelle, as we're getting near the end here of the show, what advice would you give people who are watching, who may have businesses of their own? What advice would you give them in terms of looking at this issue of diversity and inclusion to help them improve their business?
I think the first point is just recognizing that it is an issue, and start thinking throughout your business, which could be anything, how diverse is your population and how does that matter? What is going on in your environment? What is your target population? And just start thinking about how are you addressing all the concerns that are concomitant with that target population? And then you can kind of expand from there. But just having it on the radar, I think, is the biggest challenge at this point in time, especially for many of the smaller clients.
I'm glad we have a few minutes. I have one more question. What would you like to be when you grow up?
I love what I'm doing right now. I have a really dynamic, challenging job. I also get the benefit of doing something I'm very passionate about, which is spending a fair amount of my time on diversity and inclusion issues. I'm in a really good place right now.
Okay, thank you very much for being here, Michelle. It seems like the time went so quickly. We have much more to talk about, so I hope you'll come back again and be a guest again with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. We certainly had a great discussion about the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workplace and how it not only will help law firms, but it helps all businesses because of the way our population is changing in this country. So thank you for joining us, and we hope that you feel as we do, that as women in Pennsylvania, there's much more that unites us than divides us. Thank you, and please join us again.